Hi everyone, it's Emily, and these days I don't see too much interest when it comes to people collecting physical games for the 3DS. And there are probably multiple things that may explain this, whether it's the FOMO cycle has somewhat died down when it comes to the eShop closure and people trying to scoop up as many physical games as possible before the fear of price rises may occur. There's also, of course, the eShop, where people kind of feel less guilt accessing games through those means. And there's also, of course, other systems that people may have become more interested in collecting for. And now that the Switch 1 is, I guess, one generation back for Nintendo, with the Switch 2 just coming out this year, maybe people are trying to focus their collecting efforts on that system rather than back with the 3DS. So those are all very much plausible reasons why people are no longer not interested in collecting physical 3DS games. But there's this other reason that I've been seeing circulating more and more online of why people kind of have given up when it comes to collecting physical 3DS games. And that is because they are afraid of their carts dying and no longer working. There's been a couple different people online and other sort of information circulating of how people are finally inserting some older games that may have been in their collection or that they scooped up from, say, a garage sale or some other place. And whenever they insert that said game into their 3DS, it doesn't pop up and it's not actually working. So having a game no longer work is definitely a valid concern when it comes to collecting. In fact, there's actually a few famous cases of 3DS games that stopped working a couple years after they came out. The most famous example of this is with Persona Q, Shadow of Labyrinth. The first edition games had really bad quality control where a lot of these carts just failed whenever people tried to insert them into their 3DS devices. Another example that was also well known was with the remakes for Sapphire and Ruby with Alpha Sapphire and Mocha Ruby. Even my cart for Alpha Sapphire, when I inserted this into my 3DS, it kind of took a while for it to actually read properly. And I was really afraid that this game card would also inevitably fail. Thankfully, it still works today, but it's one that I've been keeping my eye on, of kind of concerned, am I going to be able to actually play this in the future? So having a couple of well-documented cases of games that have unfortunately failed over time with the 3DS, as well as some new reports coming in of other titles being recognized as also having issues with their game carts, does collecting for the 3DS system really worth it when it comes to physical game collecting? Now, I think this is a question that is up to the individual. For me, I love my 3DS. I think it has one of the best libraries, especially for JRPGs, which is my genre of choice, that is available across any system. And there are a lot of exclusives on the 3DS that you cannot play anywhere else. And I really cherish the 3DS collection that I've built up over the years. And this is also the system that kind of got me back into physical game collecting. So for me, I'm never going to part with my 3DS collection. And towards the end of this video, I'll be sharing a couple tips of how to increase the longevity of your 3DS collection if you also choose to still collect for the system. But for now, I want to get more into what makes the 3DS game cart so vulnerable to failure, as well as predict, I guess, how widespread of an issue is this for the 3DS, and kind of also what sort of other systems may also be at risk for failure that are also cart-based, and kind of compare contrast the 3DS with some other well-collected systems. The 3DS utilizes flash memory as a way to save games, and there are kind of trade-offs to what flash memory gives. Some of the pros are it is very compact, so that's why we have that nice slim profile for our games with the kind of cute little carts that you could insert and travel well with and all that. But the con is that there are a lot of environmental factors that kind of speed up the degradation of the flash memory. And once the flash memory gets corrupted, unfortunately, there's no way to repair them. Unlike, let's say, the Game Boy lineup of handhelds, their games were based off of battery for the most part of how to save their games. And even if your game died, you unfortunately can't revive your save file, but if you replace the battery either by yourself or at some sort of shop that does it for not very much money, you're able to utilize your card again and play it again like it's new. But unfortunately with the 3DS and other carts that utilize flash memory, once the cart dies, it stays dead. Now, these carts dying is something that's become more widespread. I think now that we have the internet and people are actually testing out and playing some of their games that they haven't utilized for a while and noticing that my game is not working. So corruption probably set in either due to environmental factors or just really bad Q&A when they went to manufacture and all these other issues that crop up with flash memory. But one thing to take away from this is that there's two different types of flash memory. So if we look at the Nintendo DS as well as the PS Vita, those were the earliest forms of flash memory for these kind of collectible handheld systems for the most part. And it's also kind of the most basic type that unfortunately also is very much prone to corruption. You don't hear as many people complaining about their PS Vita or Nintendo DS games dying yet, but because it does have the kind of lower form of flash memory, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years we're going to hear more people talk about how these games are no longer working and run into those type of issues with those systems. But thankfully, when it comes to the Nintendo 3DS, Switch, as well as the Switch 2, I believe, they utilize the second form of flash memory that has its own kind of self-repair mechanism that helps stem away corruption from kind of taking on. And what I mean by this is when you insert your game cart into the console itself, and I think you have to at least enter the start screen or something like that, it automatically starts self-repairing the flash memory to help reduce the degradation that could happen and prevent any sort of corruption, or at least lower the risk of corruption capturing into your game cart and making it fail. And so this has been, I think, something that more people are becoming aware of, that you should open up your sealed games and insert it into your console if you ever want to really play these games sometime in the distant future. And mostly what I've been hearing, at least online, from people who know more about flash memory than I do, is that you should insert your games that you want to play in the future every 5 or 8 years, just so that self-repair mechanism kicks in and just helps elongate the life of these game carts. And this is kind of the primary reason why I wanted to make this video, was to help spread awareness that if you want to collect 3DS games and play them in the future, it's a good idea to crack open those sealed 3DS game cases you may have. I have a few still that I haven't opened myself, and actually insert it into your 3DS as a way to, again, help elongate their lives. And so I got Soul Hackers here, and how nice it looks like inside here. I don't really like to keep games sealed for the most part on my channel, but there are a couple that I just haven't really opened and I kind of forgot to open them. So we're going to do this now. And so I've got the Soul Hackers there, gonna start it up and let it cook a little bit while I finish this video. But yeah, I think this is just a very simple solution to those who, again, want to collect 3DS games, also Switch games. This is something you should also do for your Switch games. And I know it's kind of a pain to schedule this maintenance cycle, if you will. Even though it's only every 5 or maybe 8 years, you can be more conservative, do this every 3 or 4 years, whatever you're comfortable with. But for the most part, I think if you're really concerned about your games getting corrupted and not being able to play your collection, this is the thing to do. I know there's a lot of people who like to keep their sealed games as a way to, hedge bets in the future, but this is also kind of a warning that if you are looking to add to your 3DS collection, maybe you should avoid sealed games if possible, if they're ones that you actually want to play, because there's a possibility that they may just not work out of the box. And also, if you are in the market of buying used games, you could always ask a seller if they could test it out to make sure the game actually works before you commit to the purchase. A certain level of maintenance is probably required for most things. Like I also collect figures back there, and some of the maintenance and buying these statues is that I dust them every 2 weeks. Because once the dust starts building up, it's hard to remove that from the figures, and it could kind of damage the paint and some other unfortunate side effects that come with environmental factors. Same thing with games when it comes to humidity levels. If you live in a very humid place, you might want to invest in like a dehumidifier or other ways or to store your games so that they're not affected so much by the elements and degrade faster. You've probably heard of things like disk rot with some of the earlier disk-based games, especially this Sega Saturn is notorious for having huge disk rot issues and other corruptive things that make them sadly fail often these days. And when it comes to investing a lot of money in some of these older consoles and games, we don't want to be buying games, I think, that we can't, play, at least in the short term. So I just, again, wanted to kind of make this video talking about the state of collecting these, I guess, flash memory games, namely the 3DS, because this is what has been popping up so much. And I've been hearing a lot of people, again, just trying not to buy 3DS games at all because they're so worried about the corruption setting in. But I think just taking these simple steps and preserving your games, loving the collection that you have, will just, elongate its life and make it so that you're able to play these games, in the future. So I'd love to hear what your guys' take is on 3DS collecting. Do you think it's still worth collecting for 3DS despite the flash memory issues? Also, if we extend this to the Switch, is this also a growing concern that you may have when it comes to Switch games? Or do you just like having physical game collections for the short term and you're not too worried about like 10 or 20 years from now being able to play them? I'd love to hear your guys' take on this. And also if you are still hunting out 3DS games. For me, I think my 3DS collection is pretty much done. There's like one or two titles that would be nice to have in my collection, but I've actually reduced my collection a bit, trying to curate it more to just titles that I really love and ones that I want to, put the effort into maintaining for the next few years to come. But I want to give a big shout out to all my channel members who help support videos like these, as well as my live streams that I do both here on YouTube and on Twitch. And I want to especially thank my Orbit Architect level members, Dr. God and Trin. I really appreciate all the support you give me and look forward to more videos from me. I am starting to make a lot more videos. I'm going to be very aggressive, I think, these next few months. So if you've missed my videos, stay tuned for more of them on collecting topics, as well as I think I'm going to be starting some other series that are, of course, gaming related and should be fun. But anyway, until my next video, bye guys.